Okay, so first off, can you introduce yourself?
Of course, I'm Josh Cortez. I'm a third-year here at UNT. I'm also the vice president of the powerlifting team here. I've been doing it for about 2.5 years now, so I started when I came into college, and I've lived it ever since.
Cool, cool. How long have you been involved with lifting and powerlifting?
So lifting, I've been doing it ever since I was 13. But I started powerlifting about 2.5 years ago. So I started lifting because it just helped me deal with certain things in my life. And when I discovered powerlifting, I just wanted to pursue that.
Cool. How do you feel about steroids in general?
So my standpoint on steroids is just like, if you're an athlete and your federation or association obviously prohibits you using it, then don't do it. If you're allowed to use it, then that's your choice. But if you're competing, like let's say in football or baseball or powerlifting, and the rules certainly say you cannot use this, then you shouldn't use it.
That makes sense. How do you feel about steroids in powerlifting?
So in powerlifting, you have different federations. So the one that we compete under, USAPL, it's drug tested. So you're not allowed to use any kind of performance enhancing drugs. Now in powerlifting, you have other federations that allow certain things to be used. So like I said before, if you're in one of those federations and you do use those drugs and it's under the rules, then that's your choice. But if you're competing in a federation that obviously states you cannot use those, then you shouldn't use those.
Do you feel like there being a, what the hell is this say? Okay, sorry, I have to read it. I did not write this down. Okay, do you feel like there being a tested and non-tested divisions takes away from the sport?
No, I don't, because I feel like certain people who want to use those drugs, it's not illegal per se. So like if that's your choice, then so be it. I just feel like if that's your choice, you should compete against other people using those drugs. It doesn't make any sense, or it's not fair for you to use those drugs and compete against people who are not on those same drugs.
Okay, hold on. So can you repeat that question, and can you try to restate what
Right.
I asked you?
Right.
So then we can capture it.
I mean,
Of course.
it's good so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there being a tested and non-tested divisions takes away from the sport?
No, I don't feel like having a tested and non-tested division takes away from anything, because you have the people who choose to use those drugs. So if that's your choice, then just go compete somewhere that allows that to happen. Now, if you don't want to use those, you just want to see what your natural potential is, then just compete where you can. But I don't think it's fair for people to use those drugs and then compete in federations that do not allow that.
That makes sense. How do you feel like your sport gets stereotyped a lot because of steroids?
I don't feel like there's a whole lot of stereotypes happening, because you do have both the non-tested and tested. Now, I will say that drug tested doesn't mean drug free per se, but I guess it just depends on a certain individual using those drugs or not using those drugs. I feel like you can't really judge something without being involved in it yourself, or that's just like you'll have a false image of what that is. So I guess until you do it yourself, you really don't know. That's my answer.
Have you at one point or another been accused of using steroids?
No, never. I've never been accused of using steroids. I'm sorry, can you do that again?
You're fine.
Your answer.
Okay, cool. No, I've never been accused of using anything myself.
Have you ever been suspicious that someone may be using steroids?
I mean, suspicious is a weird word. Like I've had people, I know people who are on it or on things, and know people who aren't. A lot of it is just like your genetic potential. Like some people are just built different than others, so you'll have a different genetic potential than other people. that doesn't mean you're on something. So like if your genetic potential is crazy and you could squat something that I can never do, then I might be suspicious, but generally, no, not too much.
With all the pressure in the sport, with the high levels of competition and records being broken, do you ever feel pressured to maybe use steroids?
No, I've never been pressured to use anything because I powerlift for the same reason that I started lifting, was just for one, to better myself and better my self-image, and two, to deal with things in my life that is just stress related and things like that. So I do it for myself just to better my own potential. So no, I don't really feel that kind of pressure because I feel like I'm competing against myself. So.
Makes sense. Are there any supplements you take in your daily life or during a training cycle?
I mean, every now and then I might take some creatine, but that's about it if I do take anything. So.
And then I have a question. Why am I reading? I'm not reading anything.
I was like, is it on the
I'm just
paper?
improvising it. Okay.
Of course.
Out of any of the people in your real life that you know who take steroids, have you personally heard any stories of side effects or problems that come with that?
I haven't heard any personal stories from people that I know, but I have heard stories from people that I don't know.
What are some of those?
Some of it is just like emotional, like breakdown, a lot of rage that happens, just a lot of loss of control, pretty much.
Okay.
Do you have anything you want to ask?
Just for reference, because I know probably a lot of people probably don't know the substance in which you stated, can you kind of just describe what it is in which you like take on occasion?
Oh, creatine?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I mean, like, I know some people that.
Yeah, like the average
that
person
help.
wouldn't exactly know.
Yeah, sure. So your body actually naturally creates creatine on its own. The only reason you would add more to your system is just to like retain water and for recovery reasons. So that's what I take, if I do take it.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm wondering is because, you know, some people don't realize that
Right.
there are other options besides steroids that can help better your body and fitness life. Yeah.
Right, of course.
Protein.
Is that everything?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
Sweet.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hey, so taking anything?
Yeah.
Let's go.
They work, trust me.
Appreciate that.
What is the difference between bodybuilding and powerlifting?
The difference between bodybuilding and powerlifting is bodybuilding is you're literally just trying to look the best you can, put on the most muscle, be as lean as you can. Whereas powerlifting is a strength sport, so there's different weight classes, and you're trying to lift as much as you can against other people who weigh the same as you. So you're not necessarily trying to look the best. It's not about the aesthetic, it's more about how strong can I get.
Cool. How long have you been involved in lifting and powerlifting?
I've been involved in powerlifting here at UNT for about 3 years. Before that, I didn't really powerlift or anything. I just lifted throughout high school. I played football, basketball, did track, all that kind of stuff. So I always loved lifting. I really didn't like playing the sports, actually. I liked just the lifting part. So when I came to UNT and was recruited onto the powerlifting team, it was kind of just like, I guess, a match made in heaven. Like it was just a lot of fun.
Cool. What do you think about the suspicions many people have about steroid use being practically synonymous with powerlifting?
I mean, powerlifting, I guess a lot of people are stereotypical that, you know, if it's powerlifting, people are using steroids. I think that goes hand in hand with any strength sport, just because people have such high expectations for everybody to break records or be stronger every single year. And there are some people who choose to go a route of using steroids to do that. I think that it is detrimental to the sport in general, but I know a lot of people who try to do it, I guess, the natural way. So.
Have you ever personally felt pressured to use steroids, either by society or others?
No, I've never been or felt the pressure to use steroids just because I know I haven't met my full potential just naturally of what I can do. I'm only 3 years into the sport, which is relatively still new, and I still have a lot more growth that I can do. So.
What are some of the crazy stories you've heard about steroid use in the whole powerlifting world?
There are a lot of crazy stories. There's people who use steroids. There's a lot of, I guess, adverse effects that happen. You lose your hair, you go bald, acne, things like that. You have, you emotionally, you can't control yourself, things like that. I mean, you're pumping yourself full of hormones. You're not going to be able to control yourself like you could. So I guess you think of it like when kids go through puberty and they don't know how to act. I guess it's the similar way. So I don't know anybody close personally who uses steroids, so I don't have any personal stories or anecdotes, but just in general, that's what happens. So.
Interesting. Why do people have a burning passion for powerlifting that drives them to do such insane things?
It's an interesting question. I guess why people have a burning passion for powerlifting, at least mine is that it's unique. It's something that a lot of people don't want to, wake up every day and say, let me put my body through this immense amount of stress that in a sport that really relatively no one cares about. But it's just, that community, the powerlifting community is very close, and it's one that's really fun to be in, and I love pushing myself every day to do things that I never thought I could do. So.
Awesome. And let me see. Sorry, I just have to think of which ones would be best. Are there any supplements you take in your daily life or during a training cycle?
I don't take any supplements regularly. I would say at most I drink like caffeine and take pre-workout, which is mostly just caffeine in it, or there's the Bang energy drinks that contain some creatine and different BCAAs, which are like amino acids and things like that. But I don't have the money to be spending all that on overpriced stuff that really doesn't usually work. So.
Stuff. Okay. Do you guys have any questions?
Trying to think if I have. I did, but then it went away. So I'm like trying to recap myself.
You just ask him like how he thinks it affects the sport.
How do you think that steroids or the idea of them stereotyping powerlifting affects people joining powerlifting or getting into it or it being recognized more as a sport?
I would say, I guess the biggest challenge for the stereotyping of powerlifting with steroids is that it's made it really difficult, I know, on an international level to get powerlifting into the Olympics and different things like that. There's the IPF, International Powerlifting Federation, and they do the World Games and things like that that are on the same level as the other World Games for different sports, but they haven't been able to break into the Olympic arena just because it's so heavily stereotyped, and heavily people do use a lot of steroids in powerlifting. There's that fact too. So they're trying to really crack down on drug testing and things like that for those people who are in federations that drug test. So.
Interesting.
So I do want to ask, do people normally kind of bunch powerlifting and bodybuilding into the same topic that aren't very aware of the differences?
I would say people bunch weightlifting and powerlifting into each other more than bodybuilding, because I guess a lot of people just think bodybuilding, they think, people, guys in little bikinis, real muscly and things like that. But I get all the time people are like, oh, you're on the weightlifting team. No, I'm not. That's a whole different sport. That's actually an Olympic sport. Powerlifting is squat, bench, and deadlift, whereas I guess weightlifting is like a snatch, clean. They're doing a whole different types of movement that I guess if you watch CrossFit too, that's the similar movements they do. So.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Do you feel like a newcomer to the sport would be pressured into possibly using steroids or another type of supplement?
I don't feel any pressure to use any type of steroid or anything like that. I would say just because I am, I guess, newer on the scene, and I definitely, in Texas, the Texas powerlifting community is really close, so you see the same people over and over again. You form these really good connections, especially through social media. Everybody follows each other on Instagram and things like that. I just can see that I have a lot to learn, and I've learned a lot, and I still have a long way to go before I even consider or ever would consider using steroids.
So I think this is probably like a generic question, but like what would you think would make someone resort to using steroids?
I would say for people who are newcomers and decide to use steroids, I think a lack of knowledge or not having the right or either coaching or direction, it's kind of, I guess you would say, like a way to like skip not the hard work, but you're kind of like skipping a lot of the steps to get to where you want to be. Whereas I guess people who've been in the sport longer, who then decide to use steroids, they might maybe feel like they've hit their ceiling as far as they can go, and they want to be able to continue to stay relevant in the sport. So
would you feel like an increase of communication within the powerlifting world could potentially help decrease the use of steroids so that people can spread more information on how to, get swole minus
Yeah.
or whatever?
I think there is a lot of communication already in the sport. I think there's just a lot of misinformation out there. I know there's some great content out there on YouTube and things like that. You can find just great information, but at the same time, for that one video that's really great, you'll find 10 videos of people who have no credibility just saying what they've used or what they've done, and people follow it like it's the Bible or something. So.
Okay, I think that's about it.
I think
I mean,
we're
I
good.
feel like that was pretty good questions.
Yeah,
Perfect.
good job.
Thank you.
All right, Miss Warren. How did you get started in track?
Track started for me when I was in, let's say, officially 8th grade. And from 8th grade, it just grew on from there. I mean, other than elementary, doing the field day stuff, that is pretty much it. So 8th grade on is when I decided that this was for me, track and field.
That's when it would be competitive for you.
Yeah, I to be honest, pretty much when I got to high school, that was my best friend. That's where I met my best friend, and she would always beat me. She had some extra long legs than I did. And I wasn't until I got in college is when I beat her, because she went to University of Tennessee and I went to LSU.
Yeah, there's a pretty good SEC rivalry there as well.
Yes.
So, yeah. And having that best friend just provides that extra motivation.
Yes,
So you
and
can-
we stayed in touch with each other, and just, and of course we pretty much met up with each other almost every track meet because we were in SEC, so we went to a lot of meets together.
All right. And you were a phenomenal athlete at LSU. Can you show us some of the awards that you won through your career there?
Yeah, I can. These medals here these plaques actually are some of the Southeast Conference plaques that we got for the relays and my individually events that I competed in. The events that my main event was the 400 meters. My play event was the 200. That was like my candy event. And then what I really was to my heart, what's really close to my heart was the 1600 meter relay. And that relay consisted of me and 3 other of my teammates. So that I really loved. There were some medals and stuff that I had. I know that I made a lot of teams over the years through USA Track and Field and while still competing with LSU. So, yeah, I had quite a few, and a lot of these I just, I've kind of stored away.
That is
Kind of stored them away, but this is just a few. I couldn't have to go all the way to the shed and dig the other ones
I'm
out.
gonna take a quick pan of those, or like quick tilt.
This is a little plug.
and then tilt up and get her in the shot. There you go.
That's perfect. Do you mind moving the plaques out of the way now?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear that TV? Is that TV?
No, it's good.
Okay.
You can't hear it.
All right.
This looks so cool. Like I can't. That I'm having a cinematographer
I
stroke.
know you're going
right now.
through over there.
So, how far into your LSU career did you think that Olympic trials and going international was a possibility?
It wasn't until the end of my freshman year that I realized that I can go further in my track and field career as far as running for the USA, making Olympic team, making the trials, and there's several U.S. teams. There was several university, like the university games was just pretty much everybody collegiate. You didn't run against those that have already, graduated college and still running on the circuit. So the end of my freshman year, I actually had ran really fast. The time that I ran, I had made it to the Junior Olympics. The time that I had ran would have qualified me for the NCAAs that year, which I didn't make because that was my freshman year. So that time that I ran by the end of the summer would have placed me at the NCAAs that year as a freshman, but it just came later. Yeah.
I imagine that was rather frustrating at the time, though.
Surprisingly, I didn't know until because my coach told me, and I was like, oh man, that would have been awesome. But I took that for what it was, and I was like, well, I'm here. All I can do is, work towards next year and just try to better this time.
Absolutely. Do you think more of a shot where closer to the original where she was a little bit off center?
Mm-hmm. 1 second.
Yeah.
And I should be looking at you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You're doing perfect.
Yeah. Just not into the lens.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're getting into the meatier,
The meat.
the meat of the issue. Yeah. Well, for starting, as you look back, how do you compare Team USA's drug testing with the NCAA? Do you think one of them did a better job?
Thinking back on the different testing that I had to go through both. I know for the NCAA testing, they would come as far as come to your, like, say I stayed off campus, and they'd come all the way to your apartment and drug test you there. Of course, with them, they'd stand in the door. You'd go. I don't think what my experience with that wasn't, with them coming to my house was a little different than being at the track meet and they're like, hey, you got to go. They were really strict on us in the NCAAs, and it was crazy. It was like a lot of over-the-counter cough medicine. It was a lot of stuff you couldn't take. So if you was sick, you was pretty much, trying to find, home remedies that, that you wouldn't get caught, like, doping on. I mean, things as minute as a poppy seed. Too many poppy seeds could,
If you had one too many babies.
Yes, too many.
Do you mind pulling up your shirt real quick?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
For as the USA track and field, and when I was drug tested with them, you pretty much doing it 360, like standing up, and they need to see everything. And I didn't know what it was for, but it was to pick out those guys that were not doing right. So I didn't.
Especially concealing. I know there were several NFL athletes who attempted to sneak other people's urine in and
Yeah.
so that was
With track and field, that was very hard to do. Extremely hard to do with the process that they had us doing when we did get called for drug testing. A lot of times they pull you you know, as soon as you cross the line, hey, you got picked for drug testing, and you had so much time to get there. So not being there on time could, you know, disqualify you.
Yeah. Did you, when you were running at LSU, did you suspect that any of the other athletes on the team were possibly enhancing with something else or thinking outside the box, we'll say?
I can say 100% that none of us were thinking. I think we were in the limelight so much because of who we were and what we had done that no, nobody would have jeopardized the team's reputation by trying to do something different than other than being honest and training and doing what you needed to do on the track. And, you know, other than supplements like your protein, you know, your creatine, that kind of multivitamins, you know, stuff like that to keep you going through these meets. That was about it.
And how quickly did you move on to, after you graduated, to being up there with Team USA coaches and other athletes where you're training for the goal of making the U.S. Olympic team?
As far as me moving on or thinking to move on to the next level, I mean, like I said, at the end of my freshman year, you know, there was hopes, oh, you're really fast. Because I came out of high school running at 55. So at the end of my freshman year, I wasn't even there like a good year yet and had dropped a whole 3 seconds. So it wasn't until like the end of that, going into my sophomore year, that I knew that I had the potential to be great. You know, and to be able to keep LSU's reputation and those SECs, those NCAAs, to be able to be a contributor to that.
Yeah. All right. Now you trained and you ran with Marion Jones and several other athletes who wound up getting busted later for performance enhancing drugs. When you were training, were you aware that these athletes were starting to leapfrog you in ability, and like that suspicion in your mind of maybe they've started to add something else other than, you know, protein and multivitamins?
Yeah, I can tell you right off the bat, I knew that they were doing something different. I mean, and I can say maybe the guys that thought they should have been in that clique or knew something, there was already conversation about, you know, a couple of the athletes out there were getting drugs. Because I can tell you in the fall, say fall training, you know, and I was busting a lot of them out. But come like the spring or whatever, you know, they were busting me out. And I was like, how is this possible? Because we're doing the same stuff. You know, we're doing the same things. But even in that perspective, they still were, that group, he had his group, he had his pick. And I believe that's the guys that they was going all the drugs and stuff. Because he would take, and it was crazy, he would take that group and they would go somewhere else and train. And we pretty much, the other athletes would have to stay there. They couldn't really afford to go and do the extra training or the extra, you know what, and, you know, that they were doing. So we pretty much for a little while had ended up like training ourselves until they came back.
And this was the coach of the U.S. track team?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, he was the coach there. His name was Trevor Graham. And he was a coach that everybody came to train. He wasn't a USA track. He's actually Jamaican. And he just like a lot of them, they'll take in athletes and they'll train them. And, you know, you pay me, I'll train you, I get to you where you want to be. But then it turns out, hey, we're going to get these and it's going to flip. We're going to try to hide this from the USA track and field. So, yeah, it was a lot of, especially the females that I know. Even Marion, when we were in the off season, she couldn't hang. I was killing them out there in the workouts.
And then all of a sudden in the spring.
All of a sudden in the spring, they just They was kicking it like they leaving me in the dust, like I hadn't been training.
Like a light switch had
Yeah.
just turned on.
Yep.
Now, you were suspecting that they, especially in the spring when that light switch turned, did that ever put into your mind, maybe I should try and go the other route just to keep up with these other athletes who I'm beating in the fall, but by the spring, something has changed within them?
There was nothing ever in my mind because, I mean, I'd heard and seen so many people get busted and you get banned for life. You know, I've seen female athletes where they've taken so much and, you know, they start to lose all the hair around the edges. I didn't want that because I had a love for that sport and I didn't want to cheat. So look at Marion, you get everything ripped from you. So what was the benefit of doing something illegal? So no, I never did. I did get upset that this is what they were doing. They were not being honest and what they were doing naturally. And I think the money thing is what really caused a lot of them to keep doing that because I'm in the limelight. I'm making this fame, making this money. I'm living in this big house. You know, let me keep on doing this doping.
So you think that it was really just trying to, especially on the international circuit, I know that was a big moneymaker for a lot of track athletes in the off season. But when most of the world is not paying attention to the track world, there are international competitions where they're making pretty good money.
Making pretty good money. Yeah, that's where that's where the money was made. Because over there, track is like football, like soccer over there to them.
So it's a headline year-round sport where they can
go and make money. It's either indoors or outdoors.
Yeah. And you kind of addressed this, but so it did bother you as a competitor, as an athlete, seeing these people cheat the system and really kind of cheat you out of your opportunities. I mean, did it really weigh on you, or did you try and let it go?
I felt like at one point that I was pretty much just used to like a rabbit. You know, like, you know, I wasn't really, like, the attention wasn't really to get me better or fast because I had been great.
Right.
You know, life changes happen and I was trying to get back to where I was, and I think I was just used there to be someone to run off, and you know, that was it. But so yeah, I really felt upset in that manner, and that he didn't focus on me enough to let me get what I knew I had naturally, or bring that out of me naturally that had been there before.
So you're kind of like the rabbit at the dog track. It's kind of...
Yeah, or have you seen the long distance races where they'll have a guy run like 2 strong hard laps and then he runs off and the guys can continue that same pace. So that's what I kind of
So you were kind of setting the pace, and then that was the mark for them to beat it.
Yeah, I was like, oh.
That's where we have to be. We have to surpass that to be on the same level.
Yep.
Okay. Were you aware of any other members other than Marion Jones?
There was several guys on the team that were, and I know one of the guys that was trying to, and I know because he would confide in me about trying to get in the little program that they were in. And one of the ladies that actually was from here, I guess she had someone helping her, and it was Michelle Collins, and Michelle wouldn't give this guy the information for her connection and share it.
Kept it to herself a little bit.
Yeah, like I need this for myself so I can be great. You know, she didn't want to share her guy. And from what I understand and what I was told was that, you know, they'll get these chemists that can help them conceal this stuff in their bodies when they get ready to be tested. And that a lot of it was like under the skin, like they would shoot up under the skin, not like directly in the bloodstream.
So there we go, subcutaneous rather than intravenous, so that it was not in the bloodstream. Did anybody ever? You said that he was trying to get into that clique, that group that was in that constant training and that was being coached specifically. Were there any athletes that were able to propel themselves through chemical means or otherwise to vault themselves up into that upper echelon?
With Marion, there was a guy named Ramon Clay, Tim Montgomery. Those guys that was in that clique with Marion, yeah, they did propel to some different levels, but it all came back crashing on them all at some point in time. A couple of them did some jail time, and and Marion had to go do that Martha Stewart time in the jail, and ripped all her. And just recently, not too long ago, I read about Tim Montgomery. He had to do some time, but they were doing more than the doping. They were doing other things, checks and stuff like that. They
check fraud, I believe.
Yeah, they went. Yeah. They went a whole nother level with their doping stuff. So
I have a quick question. So what was the implication of the doping? What happened because of it?
Because of the doping, a lot of people lost their status. They lost their status with USA Track and Field. They lost their status with just fans. I mean, it was, I know for a lot of athletes that are people in general that was rooting for the athletes, it kind of, they were disappointed. I mean, I was really disappointed. And I hated it, I won't say I think the group that I was in was awesome, and then if they had if they had just used their raw talent, I think they would have still been a good group. But greed got them to where they're at, and now they have nothing. I mean, that whole group does not have anything. None of them are still competing. None of them have the things that they had when they were cheating the system.
At all, do you think that it was kind of leveling the field in the sense of Russia has gotten caught with a systematic countrywide system where they were doping athletes that went back several Olympics? Do you think that there was an aspect of this is just leveling the field for the Olympics where we know that some of these other countries are
doing the same thing? Yeah, I believe so. I mean, even now I do question some of the athletes that are competing today. I mean, humanly, some of those times are just impossible without an extra push. Look at the Usain Bolton. All of look at him. Look how he's leaving in. Michael Johnson, I believe he left the game before, or he had found out, or they had found out that he was dirty. I mean, this man would walk off the field and like he had never ran a race. He wasn't breathing hard. I mean, I don't care what amount of training you do. At the end of that 400 meters, you're going to be breathing heavily. This man could walk off without acting like he had never ran that race. So, and Carl Lewis and them, those guys, yeah. So, even with Jackie Joyner, I believe what really caused her heart to fail is because of the drugs that she was using. But they're not gonna say that because they want her to keep.
And they had the
it was speculation.
Excuse.
Yeah,
they had the built-in excuse of asthma had.
Yeah.
Well, and FloJo as well, didn't she?
Yeah, that's what I meant. FloJo.
Yeah, FloJo. Yeah.
They was kinfolk.
Yeah. And how much of an impact do you think Marion's ex-husband had on influencing her to go that route? Because
he got busted. He got busted in the 2000. He was busted at the Olympic trials in 2000, but they didn't wait. They waited till later to say that he was dirty. So he knew already, and because knowing him, he was the meanest. He was so rude. He was so mean, and I think he preyed upon her because she was really way younger than him. because I think he was the athlete. He was a coach at UNC up there, and while she was running. So yeah, I think he had a really big.
So you think there may have been a coercive effect where he kind of convinced her?
Just knowing the little time that I did know him, yes. On this, and then she took that and she just ran with it even after she divorced him.
Yeah.
She wanted to keep that status.
She did continue. Yeah, because she dropped him after.
Oh yeah, she dropped him while we were while I was down there.
Yeah.
And we were in North Carolina.
Yeah. Now Marion Jones has, like, her big claim is that she never knowingly used any performance enhancing drugs.
That lady knew. And I know she knew because Trevor Grant was her coach. And I know he knew who she had, who she was working with. He knew, all the different people that she was working with, because they all got busted around the same time. It came and they just started snitching and rolling everybody at the same time. Once one person got busted, it was on.
Well, especially once federal time is involved, it becomes a little bit.
Yeah.
One
a little
person,
crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the same thing happened with Lance Armstrong, where a member of his team just said, "Hey, I'm not doing time for you."
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So, while Team USA and USADA are very strict about their anti-doping policies, do you think they get enough of a hit as well when someone gets busted? Because they're already making the money off of them. USA Track and Field is already making money. The sponsors are already making money.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think the only person that losing that is the athlete, because I don't see USA, other than the funding getting that athlete over there. That may be the money that they lose out on, funding them to get to these different track meets. But a lot of times those meets overseas, those countries, pay out that are those that are holding the meets, pay out that money to them. I think the only people that maybe the sponsors, like the Nike, maybe, because you done invested so much money in this person, and then they end up being dirty.
Well, but how much product have they helped sell?
A lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're still winning in the end.
Yeah. Like you said, most of these athletes, Lance Armstrong is gone.
Mm-hmm.
He's no longer on the scene. Marion Jones,
Gone.
she tried to do the WNBA for a little bit.
And she should have stuck with that instead of going into track and field, because I think she's a better basketball athlete. Naturally.
Yeah, and I don't know. The thing that always seemed weird with the X-Files is she's such a bubbly personality that...
She does. Surprisingly, she is. But I have seen her be rude.
Okay.
It's possible.
Yeah.
But, just sit and talk to her. She's cool. She's playful. She's goofy. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess you just, with the time, you catch her.
Yeah. Well, and how well do you think they're patrolling the sport now?
I don't. You know what? I don't know. Actually, let me take that back, because I think here recently, not last year, maybe year before, one of our LSU athletes, she, before it came out on the scene, she took some over the counter, so she basically got busted.
Yeah.
And so what the head coach did was contact all of us past athletes to let us know that, hey, this is going to come out, this is why, blah, blah, blah. So it wouldn't be any surprises and, about what was going to happen.
Well, and who's the main male runner for Team USA that's been in competition? Team Gay?
Tyson? Not Tyson. But Tyson...
I'm not sure. But he had gotten busted in the past.
Tyson Gay.
Yeah. And
Tyson Gay, he came back.
I mean, and these athletes are, track and field is a lot like tennis, where you were kind of done pretty young.
Yeah.
Tyson Gay was like in his 30s, along with
Yeah.
Usain Bolt at this last Olympics, where he finished second in the 100, I think.
Yeah.
How can you really attribute it all to better conditioning and better scientific knowledge of the body necessarily?
I questioned when Tyson Gay come back because I was like, well, aren't you kind of past that age where those quick fire muscles are kind of like, So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was something in his head. I'm going to get this. I'm going to prove to them that I don't need these drugs. And it may be the case. I can do this without these drugs. And he did that. He proved it. I mean, because nothing's come out yet that he's been running dirty.
No. Yeah.
Yet. So.
And there it is. Because they keep those samples for years and years. But it's always a game of catch up. It seems like the bad guys have always got the advantage where they're.
Yeah, because look how
getting
long Marion ran.
Yeah.
You know, before, and a lot of these guys ran before they busted him. You know, what was it that they slipped on, or what new tool did USA have to detect more stuff? Because they know that these people are doing this, you know, doing these extra drugs to get ahead, and so they finally probably just caught up and had better ways of detecting illegal dopings in the drugs.
So you think that Team USA, that USADA or WADA, both of them kind of have an eye on these athletes that they suspect already, and a curious researcher will go back and say, let's look at that test from 2004 again.
Yeah, I'm thinking that they getting ahead, and they getting these scientists or these chemists like these doping people had, and they having them. They paying them the money to go back and look at these samples and see if they missed anything. Because now this person, they doing this, they get, you know, oh my God, how they running these speeds and what kind of training that they're doing that they're able to maintain this. So yeah, I think they're just getting a little bit more better with detecting the drugs.
This is a kind of a little bit before your time, well, or right around your time, but Ben Johnson in '88.
Yeah.
The 30 for 30 that he did, where he basically said, hey, Carl Lewis was doing this stuff
Straight
too.
snitching.
Yeah, he was straight snitching.
Yeah.
But do you think that, because Carl Lewis got popped several times at other events that were international events where they said, hey, there's something in the system that's not supposed to be. And they were basically his manager was able to kind of brush it under the rug.
Yeah, I bet it's a lot. I know it's a lot of them that's probably get it to hush hush. And it just depends on the meat. Probably depends on the meat too. You know, if it's not one of those great big, because there's a lot of little rinky-dink little meats, you know, that you can go make little chunk change in. Maybe those kind of meats, you know. They just more excited to have that athlete there than worry about what kind of drugs and stuff that they're on.
I found Ben Johnson's protestation about testing positive at the '88 Olympics interesting, where he said, oh no, I was definitely doping prior to the Olympics, but I had stopped.
Yeah,
soon
like it's
enough.
still in your system, sir. Or look at Gail Devers.
Yeah.
She has the Graves' disease, so she had to take the steroids.
Yeah.
In her.
So you think everybody's just looking for that? If they can find that little excuse to kind of to go after something that some people are more inclined to take advantage of it.
I think maybe more around that time, you know, the 80s, 90s when I was still competing and, you know, got introduced to the circuit and stuff. I think then around that time more so than now. You know, I ain't in that life no more, so I can't really speak to that. And I get a chance to watch it, I watch it, but I pray that the athletes that I do see is like all natural, you know, because
Yeah.
makes you genuine. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much it. Yeah. Like I threw a bunch of extra stuff in there that I was just curious